Good morning everybody and welcome to another video. This morning I've been out actually just doing a little bit of scouting in a couple of locations because I've got a lot of good content, wildlife content coming up in the coming months, but it does take an awful lot of preparation. So I've been to my barn owl site earlier on this morning, and now I'm also in this area. I do have a lot of history with foxes having the cubs up here, so I'm just literally at the minute just sat. I'm going to record this video, but I'm just keeping my eye out at the minute for any parents that I see heading in any particular direction, because that can give me a clue to where the foxes are. There's an awful lot of old badger sets up here, and they don't set up in the same one every year. They tend to sort of hang around in different ones. So yeah, a lot of preparation involved. Today what I wanted to speak about really was, I don't know whether you've noticed, but over the last few months I've switched cameras to, well, I say I've switched one of my cameras from an A6400 to the A7r3. And I've had quite a few questions when people have noticed that, to why I've switched, because obviously I've always extolled the virtues of the Sony A6400. I really love that camera, and to be honest, that's not changed. I'm actually recording on my other Sony A6400, so that's now my dedicated backup camera. But I really just wanted to explain a little bit about why I switched, and really what I've found so far about the A7R3 that I like or dislike, which, you know, in 2022, you know, this is I think a 2017 camera. Is it really up to the job? Have I made the right decision? So we'll take a look at that now. So as I say, it's probably a little bit unfair to say I've switched from the A6400, because I still do use the A6400, as I said. And you might be thinking, well, why have you switched? Is it the performance of the camera you're not happy with? Weatherproofing, is it something like that? Is it the durability? It's actually none of those things. And it really came to a little bit of a head in this video that I recorded up in Aberdeenshire. And what it was, I'd got both my A6400s. I was recording that video, the Aberdeenshire video, and no problems with the camera at all. I went out on one particular day and got a load of shots of red kites and red squirrels, which, you know, were some nice shots. Got back to the holiday cottage, took the SD card out, and the SD card was corrupted. And, you know, it wasn't a particular problem because it was for a YouTube video. But for me, I mean, this has happened to me probably twice in the last 15 to 20 years. So it's not something that happens, you know, on a regular basis. So it's something that you tend to forget about until it happens, basically. But what got me thinking a little bit was, I actually do, on occasion, do some sort of commercial work for clients. So I've never had it happen when I've been doing that, but I would be mortified if it did. And it got me thinking I really could do with a camera that's got dual SD card slots, and that's something that the A6400 doesn't have. And yeah, despite my love for the A6400 and what a fantastic camera it is, I decided that I actually needed to make a change specifically just for that reason. So that's what I decided to do. As I say, nothing to do with the performance of the A6400, really still very happy with it. I'm happy to shoot with that anytime. You know, it doesn't cause me any problems at all that I can't come away with, if I do everything right on my side, a really good image. So yeah, I decided I just needed to do that and switch one of my cameras so that if I'm doing commercial work particularly, the dual slot allows me to record the same images to the both SD cards at the same time. The chances of them both failing at the same time are pretty remote. So you know, it really does cover you. So that was it. That's what I decided to do. So why, I know you're saying, would I then go for something like the Sony A7r3? Those people who've watched my channel recently will know I've been doing an awful lot of wildlife. But I also enjoy landscape photography and do landscape photography. I do astrophotography. I sometimes do some sort of street photography. That I like to try my hand at all sorts of things, as well as sort of quite regularly doing landscape photography as well. So as you'll know, I'm not the sort of person who's going to go and get the flagship model and pay today's prices Really for a number of reasons. One, I can't really afford it, not without selling a kidney, which I'm not prepared to do. And two, to be honest, I don't think it's necessary. I think there's a lot of marketing hype around, you know, you've got to have this is going to change your photographic life. And, you know, I take things like eye autofocus, for instance. You know, this is supposedly the next big thing, and all the cameras are tracking the eye of a subject and, you know, whatever. And marketing would have you believe that before that came in, you could never take a shot where the eye of the subject wasn't sharp. Well, I've been doing that for years without eye autofocus. So, yeah, it might be a tool that's useful, but is it necessary? Well, probably not. So for me, I always set myself a budget of what I'm looking at, and I'd set myself a budget of under £2,000 or around £2,000. And that really, just in the Sony range, gave me the Sony A9 and the Sony A7r3. Now, if I was purely a wildlife photographer, did nothing else, I think the decision would have been clearer to go for the A9. But for me, doing other genres of photography, I really wanted a more versatile camera, and I think the A7R3 gives me, you know, the more versatile choice. You know, it's not a dedicated wildlife camera by any means, but as regards pitting it against the A6400, well, I think, you know, if you look here at camera decisions, the A7R3 really gives you an upgrade in every level. I think apart from portability, so obviously the A6400 is smaller, much smaller camera, and it shoots 11 frames a second, whereas this A7R3 only shoots 10 frames a second. Not something that particularly bothers me. And as I say, I've kept one A6400, so if I ever want to go really, really portable, I've still got that option. So it's just really expanded the options for me. It's made me more flexible in the way I shoot, and, you know, I can sort of adapt and change within those two cameras to suit the situation that I'm in, really. So I discounted the A9 pretty quickly because, as I say, it's more aimed at wildlife photography, I think, rather than other genres. This camera's got a 42 megapixel sensor, which again allows me to crop quite aggressively, with it being a full frame sensor and the 600mm lens. So yeah, it's just really opened up the possibilities and given me more flexibility within the system that I'm using. Would I say that it's improved any of my shots so far against the A6400? Not really. You know, I'm not finding that I can say that the quality of the images has improved. One of the things in the past that would have been a particularly big problem is, obviously this camera performs much better with it having a full frame sensor in low light conditions. And, you know, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, I would have been saying, well, this is a massive improvement on a crop sensor camera because it means I can shoot in lower levels and, you know, I'm not getting as much noise, etc. But to be honest, what I've found recently is the image processing software that I use, which is DxO Pure Raw, is so good at getting rid of noise that, you know, if I'm shooting at a higher ISO with the A6400, I can get rid of that noise in post-processing. So yeah, this won't give me as much noise initially, but, you know, is it now so much of a problem? I'm not sure. So the only, so as regards, you know, image quality and stuff, you know, I've not really noticed anything. Maybe I will when I shoot other genres of photography, when I start doing more landscapes and stuff, then yeah, that might be something that I notice. But at the present time, you know, that's not really a big issue between the two cameras. So far, what have I noticed that I particularly like about this camera? Well, one of the things that hit me straight away is to do with the mode button on the top. Now, obviously with the A6400, you've got a lot of preset modes there for, you know, landscape, filming, panoramas, all sorts of stuff that you can just twist the dial and it will do that mode of shot for you. What this has got, it's got actually customizable modes on there. So you've got 1, 2 and 3, which you can basically set up for any type of shot that you want. Now, I have found that really, really, really useful. It's the one thing on this camera that if I was to swap back, I would want to take with me. at the minute. That's the one thing I've found, and that's because when you're doing wildlife photography, you can often be, you might have a bird on the ground that you're photographing. If that bird then takes off into the sky, you need a whole raft of different settings to take that shot. So you might be, you know, at 1/500th of a second, 1/250th of a second on the floor. But when the bird takes flight, you want to be shooting at a much higher shutter speed. Now, what I can do with this camera, and you can change, you know, you can adjust all other settings as well. So what I can do with this camera is basically what I've done on mode 1. So on the number 1, I've set for terrestrial animals and birds. So if I switch to number 1, that gives me a baseline of settings that I know are capable of getting me a shot with animals or birds that are on the floor, or, you know, on the ground or perched or whatever. That is really important for me, because that then means, it doesn't mean that I'm going to use those settings, it means that I've got a base setting where I can get a shot. Once I've got that initial shot, I might want to tweak things this and that way. I might want a higher shutter speed, I might want a lower shutter speed, I might want more depth of field or less depth of field. But I know I've got a base setting that's going to give me a chance to get a shot. So if that suddenly disappears, I know I've got a shot. But then what that enables me to do then is, I've changed button 2 for my birds in flight settings. So as I was saying, if that suddenly takes flight, or if I see something else in the sky and I want a shot, I can quickly flip that to 2, and I've got base settings set up. And now again, the same applies. I might want to change the depth of field, I might want to change exposure compensation, I might want to change the shutter speed to slower or faster, but it puts me somewhere straight away in the ballpark where I can get a shot. And what I've done for button 3, because I do YouTube videos and I'm often trying to film wildlife as well, I've changed that to filming, which I find invaluable. I mean, on the A6400 and on this camera, you've got customizable buttons that you can hit, but if you're having to hit 2 or 3 different buttons and which one is it, to get to those initial base settings, your moment can be gone. So I find that really useful. Right, so that's just a little bit of update on my camera choices and decisions and why I've made that choice. I had got a few people thinking that, you know, I'd had some major issue with the Sony A6400 and I'd fallen out of love with it. That is clearly not the case. It's one of my favourite cameras I've ever used, to be honest. I think along with the Canon 70D, I've got good memories of using that camera as well. But yeah, the A6400, I'm obviously still using it and still will use it actually if I want a really lightweight package to take out with me. That's going to be my go-to kit. So yeah, don't worry on that score. I'm also really happy with the A7R3. It's a really good pro-level camera now available at a good price. And if, like me, you're not somebody who has to have the latest incarnation of a camera that's got upgrades here and there, that for me aren't going to really improve my photography as much as me doing more work on the other bits of photography that I can control, that, you know, are much more important in my opinion than which camera I'm using, then this could be a camera that you look at. As I say, a really good price. For me, if you're doing other forms of photography as well, this is a fantastic wildlife photography camera, but it also excels in other areas. If you're doing purely wildlife, you may want to look at something like the A9, but as I say, this is my decision. Really happy with it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you a little bit of food for thought, and I hope you understand my decision making on this and why I've taken it. And hopefully we'll have a load more wildlife videos as well as landscape videos coming up this year. As I say, it's really important time of the year for me to get out and do a lot of this legwork that people don't see on the videos. You know, they just see me turning up and taking some badger pictures or some fox pictures. They don't see the hours and hours. Maybe you have with the buzzards. Maybe I've given you an insight into the buzzards, but please God, don't be like that with badgers and foxes and barn owls. I don't think I can cope with the stress that they're putting me through, and hopefully you'll see that video fairly shortly. Still working on it. thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for supporting the channel. You know, your support is greatly appreciated. For those people who haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. You know, we do have quite a bit of fun on this channel, and try to keep it fun as well as interesting and give you some information. So here's to hopefully a really good 2022. See you next week. Bye.